Hello amazing leaders, and welcome to day 39 of the Amazing 90 Day Challenge. Today I want to talk about long-term thinking. So we've got two types of thinking, long-term and short-term, and I want to focus on the long-term thinking. Now when we're faced with a difficult decision to make, where possible, switch your thinking to long-term thinking over short-term thinking. This is what amazing leaders do. They take their time on important decisions. Now, if a problem comes up that's quick and easy to solve, or it's something you've seen before, something you've experienced before, maybe last time you got it wrong, but you've corrected that in your thinking and you can make a quick decision on it, then go ahead and make that a short-term thinking and just action it straight away. But if it's a difficult decision, a bigger decision, maybe it's something you haven't ever faced before, something new to you that you've not come across, and you need to give yourself time to think about it, then I'd really encourage you to take as long as you can to think about whatever decision and outcome you're going to make. The thing is that short-term thinking and making decisions in the short term tends to be based more on our emotions. We may make a decision in the heat of the moment. We all know that phrase, the heat of the moment. And often it's not accompanied necessarily by a good outcome. We made a decision in the heat of the moment and this is what happened. As amazing leaders, we've got to elevate ourselves above the heat of the moment and make a decision based on more facts, more evidence, more time, less emotions. And that's hard to do, especially at first, especially when you haven't been in that environment before. So I want to encourage you today to think about, what decisions have you made recently? Do you have to make a decision today? Have you got some decisions coming up that are bigger? Maybe you need to spend some more time on it. If it is an important decision, then give yourself more time. Maybe, and this is something that I've done recently as well, is make a simple pros and cons list. It's amazing how powerful that can be when you actually physically write it down with pen and paper as to what you want the outcome to be of something. So maybe try that today if you can. And that actually doesn't take that long to do sometimes. So when we're saying long term and short term, we don't mean seconds and months. It can be, a short term decision could be in a split second, but a long term decision could be in a few minutes or a few hours. And if possible, try and sleep on it if you can, just to let your mind work on it overnight whilst you're asleep. There's great power in that as well. It's amazing what our subconscious can do. And often you'll wake up in the morning or after a nap even, and you'll have a different way of looking at it. A simple pros and cons list is fantastic for making those big decisions in life as well. So if you haven't tried that before, just create a title about what it is that you want to think about or a decision that you've got to make. Make that title, that description, as clear and as precise as you can so that you can easily see, or if somebody else was to look at it, you could see what the pros and cons were against that title. Sometimes you might need to do 2 or 3 titles around the same topic. If I do this, this would be the outcome. If I do that, that would be the outcome. And if I did a combination of the two, that would be the outcome. And then pros and cons around those 2 or 3 different topics as well. You can then just work out simply by weighing up, well, here's the pros and here's the cons, and which one comes out on top. Whilst you're writing it out, what is sort of, feelings do you have about something? Is it actually, there's a pro here, but that's not the be all and end all, or there's a con here and actually, I can live with that. So it's really powerful to be able to make a pros and cons list. The key to remember with long-term thinking is to let everybody know that you're going to take your time. You're going to ask for input. You're going to ask for people's ideas, suggestions on how to take this next action. Give them time to give you some input as well. And maybe you postpone a meeting and then you reconvene so that you've got time to discuss all the elements that people bring into the table. But do not forget that you need to act either way. Just leaving it out there forever, an unanswered question, even if you make a decision that isn't a popular one, you need to act on that decision. Otherwise, it's potentially very poor leadership. You've got to remember as well that no decision is actually a decision. I'll say that again, a no decision is a decision. You've decided not to do something or not to act on something, even if it's just temporary. You've made a decision not to do something. So that, again, you can't just get away with not making decisions, because you're actually making a decision there not to do something, not to act on something. So be mindful of that as you're going through whatever process it might be. As always, surround yourself physically or virtually with as many great thinkers as you can. Make sure you've got mentors around you in business and in life that can help you along the journey of life and leadership. And even consult with people that you don't know in your mind, a mastermind full of people that may not even be here anymore. You know, if it was a technical question, could you ask Thomas Edison about what he would do? And just think what he would do. How would he process that? If you failed once or twice, he wouldn't look at that as anything. He said he failed 1,000 times to come up with a light bulb, but every time he learned something new. So thinking like Edison thought will give you a different aspect into long-term thinking. Thank goodness he did think long-term. Could you imagine where we'd be now? Probably all sitting in the dark if he hadn't thought long-term and just kept going and going and going. And just even conjuring that up in your mind gives you a different way of looking at life, looking at the decisions that you've got to make. Long-term thinking, again, you can just fast forward 6 months and think, okay, is the situation, this problem, this issue that we're discussing now, what is it actually going to be like in 6 months' time? Are we even going to remember it? Is it that big a deal or not? Because 6 months is a good chunk of time to be able to think about what happened, what did we do? Think back to something you did 6 months ago. What changed? What happened? You know, was it the right decision? Did you learn anything from it? Looking forward and backwards in time from time to time, if you excuse the pun, is a good way to think about how far you've come, how far you've got to go still, what you've learnt, what you still need to learn, and what decisions you make. And as we get older, more mature in our decision making and in our leadership, not just in our age, but in the ability to make difficult decisions, that long-term thinking will allow you to process all the other types of decisions you've had to make and put it into a fantastic decision that you'll make, where other people will look at you and think, how did you make that decision? And to them, you might have made it very quickly, even though it took you overnight to make that decision. Whereas to you, that might feel like a long time to wait overnight rather than make a decision in the heat of the moment or at that exact time. So think about all those different things that we've discussed there. Think about things that you've got on your to-do list, on your mind about making a decision. Tell people that you're going to just take some time to make, this decision as best and as informed as you can, and ask for their input and just see how that will work. Maybe do a pros and cons list so that you can come up with the best thinking at the time. And then make a decision. That's the most important thing. You have to act one way or the other. You can decide not to do something, or you can decide to do something, or you can decide to do something different. But you have to do one of those three things, because doing that then tells everyone else, I can make a decision, but I'm not going to act in the heat of the moment and make a quick short-term decision about something really important and really potentially life-changing for yourself or for other people. So I hope that's helpful. I hope you'll have an amazing day. And remember, why be average when you can be amazing?